Your city's trains, buses, and long-planned upgrades suddenly lose billions in funding, not because the money ran out, but because it was deliberately frozen during a government standoff. That's exactly what's happening right now in Chicago. The Trump administration has just paused about $2.1 billion in federal funding meant for major transit projects in the city. These aren't small upgrades or hypothetical future plans. These are already approved projects that communities have been counting on. We're talking about things like the Red Line extension on Chicago's South Side and big modernization efforts to the Red and Purple lines. These projects were meant to connect neighborhoods that have been overlooked for decades. So, why is the money suddenly on hold? According to the administration, the official reason is that they want to make sure the funds aren't tied to what they call race-based contracting. They're targeting the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, also known as DB, which is designed to help minority-owned small businesses get fair access to government contracts. The White House says they're reviewing whether these programs violate constitutional limits around race and sex in contracting. But critics are calling this more than a review. They're calling it political punishment. That brings up a really important question. When does policy enforcement become political leverage? And how do everyday people tell the difference? This isn't happening in isolation either. Just a few days earlier, about $18 billion earmarked for subway and rail projects in New York was also frozen during the same shutdown battle. So, is this about policy? Or is it about pressuring Democratic-run cities during budget negotiations? And honestly, does the reason even matter to the people who depend on public transit to get to work, school, or the doctor? Let's break down what's at stake for Chicago specifically. The Red Line extension is intended to bring rapid transit further into the South Side, an area with large Black communities that have historically been underfunded and underserved. People there saw this project as a long-overdue step toward equity, jobs, and access. The other big effort, the Red and Purple modernization, is aimed at fixing aging tracks and stations to improve service reliability. Both projects are already in motion. So imagine hearing that a $300 million reimbursement has just been stalled, mid-work, during a federal shutdown. How do city planners even budget around that? And what happens to the people hired for those projects? One congressman from Illinois described it as a bad day for public transit when something so essential becomes a bargaining chip. Community leaders are calling it unfair, and Chicago's mayor says the city will use every tool available to fight it. But here's the thing, even if the money comes through later, the damage is kind of already done.